Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Adam and I am Plotly's community manager. Welcome to the Building Data Apps in Python and Plotly Dash course. In this course, you will learn to use Plotly Dash to better understand your datasets. You'll also create flexible, interactive, and powerful apps that connect directly to your analytics code. And you will learn to share those apps with others on the web. One big advantage of this course is the open source community that you are about to join. This Plotly community will accompany you along the way as you learn Plotly and Dash. Simply type into your web browser community.plotly.com and you'll have access to all the questions asked about Plotly and Dash. To take full advantage of the course, please make sure to go through the assignments and projects that will be located under the video. Make sure to also use the Plotly community forum to help each other out and to answer and ask any question that you might have. I have the link to the forum and the sign-up instructions in the assignment document number 1 located under the video. One last reminder, if you haven't done so already, please go over the Dash in 20 tutorial. This is a chapter that is in our documentation, so just type dash.plotly.com/tutorial. It's also in the assignment document number 1, this link. This will really help you get started with Dash, and it will allow you to follow along this course with greater ease. All right, if you haven't done this yet, I recommend doing this chapter before watching this video that you're watching right now, but it's not mandatory. You can watch this video that I'm gonna, this session that I'm sharing right now, and then go back and do the Dash in 20 tutorial because it will really help you connect the dots. So tech stack, what are we going to be using for this course? This course will be using Wasm Dash. And to reach this tool, you can just type wasm-dash.vercel.app or go into the assigned document number 1 under the video, and you will find the link there. Wasm Dash allows you to create simple proof of concept Dash apps directly on the browser. So you don't need to install Python or Dash or Plotly or Pandas. You don't need to install anything. You don't need to work with PyCharm or VS Code or Spider. All you need is a computer that has access to the browser and internet, obviously. But as you get more comfortable with Dash and start developing and building fancier apps with large amounts of data and different files and folders, it's recommended that you develop those apps locally on your computer using VS Code or PyCharm or any other Python IDE, because this is mainly for proof of concept. So this is a good place to start, but if you really want to develop more sophisticated apps, use your VS Code or PyCharm. All right, so let's go back into Wasm Dash. What is this tool that we're going to use? This tool has the code on the right, the code on the left and the app on the right. You can see in this app we have radio buttons, and they change the y-axis of the histogram below, and then we have a Dash AG-grid table. We can move columns around, and so on and so on. So this is the app on the right that you can interact with. The code on the left is where you can also interact with and change things. Let's change this. My first app is a title, so let's change the title to, I don't know, my second app, and then just click save and run, and now you will see the app update. If you want to add a drop down, add a checklist, you'll see we'll do that in a few minutes. You also can do it here inside the layout, and it will update the layout of the app. Pretty much any Dash app and code you can copy paste from our documentation and put it into here, and it should work, unless you're using different filing systems and data sets that are on your computer. The data set has to be online in this case, and we'll go over that in a couple of minutes. So you add the code, you click save and run to run the code, Or you can go to different examples. We have some a few built-in examples to show you how to work with Dash Mantine, for example. You want to micropip install Mantine, and then you can run it by save and run, and you see a basic example of a Mantine with an alert, right? This is an important example, Dash-in-20. This directly ties to the Dash-in-20 tutorial. It's taken from here. So this is where we are going to spend most of our time. And then you have the terminal at the very bottom, whoopsie, where you can look into some parts of the code, look into the data frame, and explore it a little bit more. So in this example, we have a data frame from a CSV sheet, and so maybe we want to read the data frame, print df head, and now we'll see the first 5 rows of the data frame. You can also print the figure if you want to look at the figure that you build, and so on and so on. So this can be very helpful as well. And you have some question mark here, like give you some guidance on how to use the keyboard for stuff and other things that you can do with this with Wasm Dash. All right, remember the link is under the video, so just make sure to open it and to have your app ready. This will be the first example that will load a nice app, but I recommend that you switch to Dash-in-20 and save and run, because this is the example that we are going to work with. So first of all, what is a dashboard? A dashboard is what we are going to build with Dash, but I want to give you some context for those who are starting out within the Dash data visualization world. A dashboard is a type of graphical user interface which often provides views of key performance indicators, also called KPIs, that are relevant to a particular objective or data-driven process. Dashboards aggregate data from multiple data sources like APIs or databases and files such as Excel spreadsheets or Google Sheets. But unlike Excel, a dashboard allows you to analyze your data through combination of tables, graphs, and interactive user input with Dash. The visualizations within dashboards serve multiple purposes, but the common roles are to show change in data over time, to offer insight on data trends, predictions, or inefficiencies, and observe relationships between different variables. So what is Dash, right? You are coming to this course, you're watching this session because you want to know a little bit more about Plotly and Dash, right? So let's start with Dash. Dash is an open source library that allows you to create analytics dashboards or data apps, right? This code that we have right here, as you can see on the screen, is a Dash app. The main sections of a Dash app are the following. It will typically, you might see different types of Dash apps, but they will usually all have these 4 different sections. Importing libraries, reading data into the app, defining the app layout, and the callback. So let's look into these 4 things: libraries, data, layout, and callback. Let's start with the libraries. Here we are importing the libraries because we're going to use Dash, we're going to use Pandas, and Plotly Express, as well as this table, which is Dash AG Grid. Now, a quick side note, only for Wasm Dash, for this Python IDE on the web. This will automatically come with Dash, Plotly, and Pandas installed. So you don't have to worry about installing Dash or Pandas or Plotly. But other libraries like Dash AG Grid, Dash Mantine component, Dash Data Table, Dash Cytoscape, you will have to install them using micropip, right? So all you have to do is import micropip.install, and then the library name. In this case, Dash AG Grid. But if you wanted to install Dash Bootstrap components, you can also do that, or Dash Mantine components. You could also install it that way, right? So this is specifically for Wasm Dash. You will not do this when you're working locally on your computer with a Dash app. You won't even install anything inside the IDE like this. You will do pip install -agrid, pip install dash, pip install pandas, and pip install plotly onto your into your virtual environment, right? So that's the difference between the online browser installation and your computer. So remember, the first section, we are importing libraries. In the second section, we are incorporating the data, right? Data can come from external databases, APIs, text files, JS files, whatever. In this case, it's coming from an Excel sheet, or more specifically from a CSV sheet that's located online. We put this CSV sheet in our GitHub, and now you'll see we have a CSV sheet with country, population, continent, and so on and so on. It's the popular Gapminder CSV sheet. And this is online because the browser, this data app is online. If you want to use your CSV sheet locally, then obviously this code will be on your PyCharm on your computer, and assuming that this app is in the same folder, root folder of the Excel sheet or the CSV sheet, you would just do it like this. PD, pandas read CSV, Gapminder 2007, or whatever the name of your CSV sheet, and then it will read it into your app. But it has to be, the CSV sheet and the app have to be in the same folder. We're going to skip building the figure because we usually do that in the callback. This is just for demo purposes. And then we have the layout. And the layout is in Dash is what allows you to display anything you want on the page, right? Your app users are going to use your app and see whatever you want them to see. In this case, you want them to see a title, you want them to see radio buttons, you want the app to include a table, grid, and then you want the app to include a histogram. So you have to define these things inside the layout like we do here. Now in a few minutes, we're going to go over add a few more components into our layout so you can see how we do this. Finally, we have the callback. I'm not going to go deep into the callback right now. I'm not going to cover it because we are covering the callback in full in the next session number 2, fully dedicated to learning about the callback. But just as a general insight into the callback, it's what allows you to connect between components inside the layout. The callback is what gives life to your dashboard. It's what allows your app to be interactive, interactive. So in this case, the callback is used to connect between the radio button and the graph. But maybe you want your app to connect between a selected row and your graph, or a radio button and a selected row. Any type of interaction that you want within your Dash app is going to happen through the callback. So it's the most important part of a Dash app, which is why we will dedicate a whole session with exercises to the callback next session. All right. So now that we learned a little bit about the Dash app, the main elements of a Dash app, we talked about the layout. So I want to show you a few other components that we can add inside the layout. Here we have the radio button, right? That's one component, and the grid. But what if I wanted to add a drop-down, or a checklist, or a date picker, or a slider? All these components exist in the documentation. dash.plotly.com /dash core component, which is right this. You click on open source, and then you click on Dash core components. I clicked on overview, and you'll see an overview of all the different things that you can add within Dash to your app. I'm going to go more specifically into, let's say, the checklist. So all I have to do, I can copy this like that, Control C, go into my code, and I'll put a comma like that. Add a checklist, comma. Don't forget to always add the comma. I always forget the comma and you get an error. And this is what it's telling us is that the value, the options is going to be New York City, Montreal, San Francisco, and the value is going to be a list of only New York and Montreal. So these two cities will be checked by default when we first load the app. So let's load the app, save and run. And now you see that we have underneath, let's create another horizontal line so it's easier to see over the radio buttons. Okay. Now you see that we have our checklist with 3 different options, New York, Montreal, San Francisco, but these 2 options, New York and Montreal, were checked by default. Maybe I just want New York, save, and now you'll see when we run the app, only New York is checked. This is only to define what box is checked when the app first loads. All right, but you can see it doesn't do anything to the graph. Checking a different checkbox doesn't do anything to the radio button or to the table because we haven't connected the checklist to any other component inside our app. To do that, we will need the callback, right? So this is just showing you how to add different components to your app. Let's see one more example. Let's add I don't know, the drop down. I'm going to go here and we'll add instead of cities, let's add something more cities as well. Cities, all of these examples are cities. So let's do this. Copy, go back. Above the checklist, we'll add this, comma. Don't need disabled, I want the drop down to work. So the options will be New York City, Montreal, and San Francisco. Well, let's just change it. Instead of New York City, we'll say Atlanta. Atlanta, Montreal, and San Francisco. Run and save and run. And now we see that we have a callback. Nothing is chosen. This is an empty drop down. If we want to choose something, we'll go to Atlanta or Montreal or San Francisco. But notice that nothing is chosen at the beginning. If we want the drop down to already have a value that is chosen, we'll go to value equals, and in this case, it's only 1. It's not a list because it's not a multiple drop down. It's a single drop down. So we'll do value equals, I don't know, Montreal. So now if we run it, we'll see that there is an error because the components receive an unexpected keyword. Right, it's not valued, it's value. That's good that we have these clear error messages. And now we'll see that the value here is Montreal, you see? Because that is what we put in here, Montreal. We can still choose Atlanta or San Francisco, but the initial value is Montreal. So this is how you add different components to your Dash app, right? I would highly recommend you read this documentation, or at least you're aware of this. Click the overview page and you're aware of all the different components that you can add to your Dash app, because there's beautiful and powerful components here. The slider, the range slider, typically used for numerical data sets. We have a text area to type things, checkboxes, radio items, buttons if you want to add an HTML button there, like you see here, the submit button or a date picker. You can really do anything with Dash. So take a look at the components. If you like a component that you need to use, just copy it and add it to your Dash app. Now, before moving on, one thing I want to highlight is the importance of the properties, right? Each component that we added, the drop down, the checklist, the radio button, they are built out of properties, right? And the properties in this case are the options, the value, or the ID, right? And you have to assign strings, lists, or just objects to these properties to define your component, to actually build and display your component. So in this case, if we go back to the drop down, you'll see at the very end of every component, you'll see component properties or drop down properties. And this will give you a full explanation of what each property is, right? What is the value property? How to use the value property? What is Boolean? If it's true, the user can select multiple values in the drop down. And it's a Boolean, meaning you cannot add a list in there or a string or an integer. You have to say either true or false, right? So if you don't know this, you read it, and now you understand that you can go back to your app, go to the drop down, and you can say multi is our property, and I only have the option of true or false. I'm going to say true. And now let's run it. And now we'll see that we can actually select multiple components. Before, I could only select one, but now I can select multiple components. So it's very important that you read the properties. You don't have to know all of them, but give them one glance. Read what they all mean, what they refer to, because it definitely gives you more customization, right? Like if the callback is, if the dropdown is searchable, if it's clearable, we can exit out the value chosen. We want to disable it. We can style it, and every single Dash component has properties. And so it's important that you know what some of these properties do. The most commonly used properties are always going to be the first, the first 2 or 3 or 4 properties in this list in the documentation. Okay. Great. If you have any questions about the components, the Dash components, the drop down, the radio button, just make sure to go on the forum after you sign up and just ask the question, right? You can tag it as Dash Online course. You can tag your question or look at the Dash Online questions, create a new topic, and just ask your question here. But make sure to be very detailed about what your question is, right? If you can share with us some code, what is causing the error, so we can replicate on our computers, that'll be, your question will be a lot more likely to be answered. So try to be detailed. Okay, so I taught you what Dash is, right? The main elements of Dash, how to add components to your layout, to the app layout, and next session we'll talk about the callback. But as you can see here, we have our histogram. Almost all Dash apps use Plotly Express figures, right? So we need to know a little bit about Plotly. So let's go to the Plotly homepage, which is right here, plotly.com/Python, and you'll see different sections here. You'll see some fundamentals of how to work with Plotly Express. You'll see some basic charts. You can click here and see more basic charts, like the full list of charts, right? We have Gantt charts, also referred to as timelines, tree charts, tree maps, icicles I like to work with. I don't know why, but I really like to work icicles, dot plots, line charts, and then when you go into them, it will give you many examples of how to build line charts, from the simplest one, which is usually just one line of code, to more and more sophisticated line charts that are more customizable, right? That are more customized. So if you go all the way down here slowly, you'll see line charts that have now, let's go right here. We're updating the traces. We're giving it text. We're giving the year as text. And we're adding markers to our line chart. So this is a really good page to learn about the basic functionalities and the most common use cases of the graph you're interested in adding to your Dash app. Okay, so just make sure to review this page. Once you have your data set, try to think about what graph you might want to use for your Dash app, for your data set. And then look over the graph and learn more about it. We have statistical charts, there's scientific charts, financial charts, maps, artificial intelligence charts, bioinformatics, and 3D charts. So over 100 graphs that you can do with Plotly. And as you saw, it's usually just one line of code. You incorporate the data, pandas or whatever, CSV sheet, and then you just build the graph. In this case, it's a scatter chart, so you do just Plotly Express px.scatter. You assign the data frame, what data you're going to use, and the column header as the x-axis, and the other column header as the y-axis. So most of our graphs are just one lines of code. Great documentation page to look at. Make sure you're familiar with this documentation and with just a few examples, especially examples of the graphs that you want to incorporate into your Dash app. Now, we have this high-level interface. We'll go over this in session number 2 or 3. But this high-level interface is gives you like all the attributes that are possible to use within a chart. So let's look at the scatter chart. All these are Plotly Express charts, and you can see all the attributes that you can use within the Plotly Express chart, right? You saw data frame, we have the x-axis, the y-axis, but you can also use color with the column header. You can use a symbol or a hover name. You can really customize your scatter chart with a bunch of these attributes. So take a look at this as well, especially if you want to build more sophisticated charts. So that is Plotly, and we did overview of Dash as well. I hope this was helpful overview for you to understand how Dash is built and how we build Plotly graphs. I did create an assignment for you. It's going to be assignment document number 1, assignment number 1 under the video, and you'll see I think like 3 or 4 different exercises that push you to add graphs to your Dash app and to add different components. This is for your practice. You don't need to submit these assignments, exercises. It's for your practice. Try to do your best. Just trying, whether you're right or wrong, is a great learning experience. It's going to allow the information to stick in your head. So give it a shot for a couple of hours, and then the same assignment document has a link to the solutions. So just click on the link at the end and look at the solutions, but definitely try your exercises before you look at the solutions. All right. I hope you learned a lot. I look forward to seeing you on the forum. Say hi if you join the forum, and that's it. I'll see you in the next session. Until then, have a good one.